What's up everybody? Holly Wolf here and welcome to another video in our gaming history series. The Super Mario series is great, but after almost 40 years since its original appearance, Nintendo is bound to let a few Mario games fall through the cracks and either get cancelled or go unreleased. So today we're going to focus on another list of cancelled Mario games, with a unique and special honorable mention towards the end. If you're a fan of videos like this, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe, as it really does help a lot. Then comment below and let us know what you thought of the games listed in this video, if we left any out, and what games you would like us to focus on in the future. Mario & Rabbids Kingdom Battle was created due to a collaboration between Ubisoft and Nintendo. However, it wasn't Ubisoft's first attempt at creating their own Mario game. Thanks to Ubisoft and Nintendo's successful partnership, Ubisoft began working on their own Mario project in hopes of having it greenlit to enter production as a full game. Beginning in development at Ubisoft in Paris, it was to be Ubisoft's next big game after Raving Rabbids Travel in Time, which launched on the Wii in 2011 and 3DS in 2012, which means it would have most likely been a 3DS or an early Wii U title. Similar to Mario & Rabbids Kingdom Battle, this Mario game would also feature Rabbids. However, where Kingdom Battle is a turn-based strategy game, this unnamed Mario game would have been an adventure game. The plot and story would also be similar to that of Kingdom Battle, having Rabbids invading Mushroom Kingdom. The different styles of comedy and self-aware humor would also be present, which poked fun at the different aspects of the Mario & Rabbids games. Like most cancelled games, no video of gameplay or screenshots are available, but concept art does exist which show Mario in Mushroom Kingdom, chasing after Rabbids who are carrying Bowser away. The project isn't thought to be directly connected to Kingdom Battle, as they are completely different types of games, one being an adventure game and the other being a turn-based strategy RPG. But it does show that Ubisoft never gave up hope of creating some form of Mario game.
The game was cancelled before Ubisoft was able to present their project to Nintendo. It's thought that this is due to Nintendo's incredibly strict quality control regarding their franchises. Only recently has Nintendo been in favor of collaborating with their IPs, as we've seen with Hyrule Warriors, Fire Emblem Warriors, and Mario + Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Even now though, Nintendo's rules are still very limiting. Aonuma had strict requirements that Hyrule Warriors could not feature dungeons or traditional Zelda gameplay. With Mario + Rabbids Kingdom Battle, Miyamoto wouldn't allow Mario to jump. I imagine if they collaborated with Pokemon, they wouldn't allow you to catch new Pokemon or evolve them, which would defeat the purpose.
Oh, wait.
One of Nintendo's most obscure and unusual consoles, the Virtual Boy, wasn't the success Nintendo was hoping for. It was released on July 21st of 1995, and the final game, 3D Tetris, was launched on March 12th, 1996. Only 22 games were released for the console in total, with almost 30 other planned games being cancelled. One of these games was Virtual Boy Mario Land, which is also known as Mario Adventure. The game was unveiled with a demo at 1995's Winter Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. The demo only contained a single level for fans to play. Mario Adventure would play like a mix between Mario Land for the Game Boy with concepts that would eventually resurface in New Super Mario Bros. For the Nintendo 3DS.
Just like New Super Mario Bros. 2, the game would be a 2D side-scroller, but would be presented with a 3D perspective. Mario and games on the main stage would have the illusion of being in 3D and popping out from the background. Just like Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Wii, the player would also be able to travel back and forth at certain points between the main stage and the background. Sadly, no real story was ever given, though at this time, Miyamoto has mentioned in dozens of interviews that Nintendo would never focus on story elements until most of the game was nearing completion. Since this game was cancelled, it was likely that the development team only had a vague or general idea of what this story would be, which we can all assume would be probably Mario setting out to save the princess from Bowser, or maybe some other evil bad guy who is trying to take over the kingdom. It also featured a top-down perspective similar to what you would expect from Zelda games for the time. Typical Mario elements returned such as question blocks, Koopa Troopas, and warp pipes. Even a giant Wario appeared, which functioned similar to a thwomp. The demo level ends with the usual goal pole. After reaching it, Mario is seen entering a castle. Along with Mario Adventure, a separate fully 3D Mario game was also mentioned to be included in the final product as a minigame. Although Mario Adventure went on to be cancelled, this 3D Mario minigame was supposedly expanded upon and later released as the standalone Mario Clash, which we can make a video about in the future if everyone would like.
Every Nintendo console from the Super Nintendo to date has had its own Mario Kart game. In most cases, it ends up being one of the most popular and best-selling games on that console. So it comes as no surprise that one was even planned for the Virtual Boy. Sadly, as with many cancelled games, no gameplay or screenshots exist for this title. In fact, the only mention comes from the German magazine The Big N, who claimed that a new original Virtual Boy installment of the Mario Kart series, codenamed VB Mario Kart, was in development. In the August 2000 issue, the title would be found in a list of other games being cancelled for the Virtual Boy. So if the German Big N magazine was correct, what could have we expected from this Virtual Boy Mario Kart? Well, a fan developer actually tried creating his own vision of what a Virtual Boy Mario Kart could have potentially looked like, which is what we've been showing during this time. This is just a basic fan mock-up though. If you would like to have a more realistic expectation of how the game would look and what new ideas could have been implemented, you just need to look at the processing power that was available in the Virtual Boy. If we look at Nintendo's previous console to the Virtual Boy, the Super Nintendo only had a 16-bit processor, and the Nintendo 64, well, if it wasn't obvious, a 64-bit processor, which it was named after. The Virtual Boy fell directly in the middle at 32-bit. However, graphics aren't all that matters. On the Virtual Boy version, you would likely see brand new gameplay mechanics, concepts, and items that would actually take advantage of the 3D effect the Virtual Boy offers, similar to how certain mechanics and items in Mario Kart 7 for the 3DS are able to take advantage of its 3D effect. On the Virtual Boy, you would have likely seen brand new gameplay mechanics, concepts, and items that would actually take advantage of the 3D effect the Virtual Boy offers. Similar to how certain mechanics and items in Mario Kart 7 for the 3DS are able to take advantage of its 3D effect. You would also have to add in the obvious difference. No matter how great you could make a game on the Virtual Boy look, it's always going to have that red tint, which puts off a lot of players.
Many people believe Super Mario 128 is only a tech demo and nothing more, but they would be surprised to know that Miyamoto on several different occasions and in different interviews actually confirmed it was in fact going to be a real game. In one of these interviews, specifically at an interview directly after E3 2004 by GameSpy, Miyamoto had this to say: "It's moving along secretly like a submarine under the water. When developing, we often look at the different hardware and run different experiments on it and try out different ideas. There have been a number of different experiment ideas that we have been running on the GameCube. There are some that we have run on the DS, and there are other ideas too. At this point, I don't know if we will see that game on one system or another. It is still hard for me to make that decision. I am the only director on that game right now. I have programmers making different experiments, and when I see the results, we will make the final decision."
In 2005 at GDC, Vice President of Nintendo, Reggie, went as far as confirming that yes, the game would be one of the main focuses of E3 2005, which was taking place only a few months later. After Super Mario 128 failed to show up again, Reggie was asked about his statement wrongly confirming the game being shown. He replied, "I can only show what Mr. Miyamoto gives to me to show." When a reporter asked if it exists, he responded, "I've seen bits and pieces." Later that year, in September, Miyamoto was on a Japanese radio station for an interview. When he was again questioned about the game not appearing when he said it would, he revealed that Nintendo is still continually working on it. He also revealed new details, such as Mario having a brand new character by his side. He then went on to announce Super Mario 128 was no longer in development for the GameCube, but had moved over to the Wii, which at this point in time was still codenamed the Revolution. The 128 in the title, Super Mario 128, referred to the processor inside the GameCube, just as Super Mario 64 was a reference to the 64-bit Nintendo 64. He also said the game had a huge role in the development of the new console, in the same way the Nintendo 64 was developed specifically with Super Mario 64 in mind, even going as far as saying the Wii was based around what he referred to as a new type of game. It turns out that the Wii was the other console Miyamoto let slip when he mentioned the game was being experimented with on the GameCube, DS, and another console. It would later be confirmed that Super Mario Galaxy would be the first main series Mario game for the Wii, not Super Mario 128. At E3 2007, when asked about this, Miyamoto stated that Super Mario Galaxy was created by the team that made Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, and development began as soon as that title was finished. This means Galaxy began development around 2004, where Super Mario 128 likely began development 4 years earlier in 2000, the year that the demo was first shown. Miyamoto would eventually state that ideas and concepts from Super Mario 128 became the foundation for what would become not only Super Mario Galaxy and the Pikmin series, but various other projects as well. Conflicting with his previous interviews, on a separate occasion Miyamoto stated that Super Mario 128 was only a demonstration to illustrate the power of the Nintendo GameCube, and nothing more. However, this contradicts several of his other statements, some of which, mentioned previously, were in his own words called it a game, and said it has been in development for 3 different consoles, being the GameCube, Wii, and DS. He and Reggie also both confirmed the game to appear at different E3s, where it failed to show. Although Super Mario 128 in its tech demo form did remain unreleased, through the experiments Miyamoto was talking about, it actually evolved into several different games. Similar to how the Tower Defense Wii U tech demo, codenamed Project Guard, that was shown off by Miyamoto at E3, evolved into Star Fox Guard as a pack-in for Star Fox Zero on the Wii U. Nintendo went on to include ideas, concepts, and gameplay mechanics from the Mario 128 tech demo and other games. Nintendo says the concept of having many different moving important characters on screen at the same time is most well known to be used in the Pikmin series. The concept of having a small world to run around on is most well known for being the foundation for the Super Mario Galaxy series on the Nintendo Wii, which is most likely the unannounced console Miyamoto was hinting at the time. Ideas and concepts from Super Mario 128 and other tech demos are still releasing today. However, although games like Super Mario Galaxy and Pikmin evolved from Super Mario 128, the project as it was first shown off was never released. Instead, it was altered and tweaked into new projects. Similar to how the Paper Mario series and Mario & Luigi series both began as sequels and spiritual successors to Super Mario RPG on the Super Nintendo.
Before we move on to our final game, just as with all of our top 5 and top 10 videos, we have made our way to the honorable mentions. We've previously covered top 5 cancelled Mario games with its own set of honorable mentions, and a top 5 cancelled Nintendo games video that had its own Mario games featured. I'm afraid before too long, we may actually run out of cancelled and unreleased Mario games. So for this honorable mention, we decided to do something different and clear up a very common misconception.
During our cancelled and unreleased games lists, we try to include games that were only cancelled or unreleased, meaning a game that never finished production or a game that was finished but never officially made available. A common game that we're asked about is the original Super Mario Bros. 2, known as The Lost Levels, which released in Japan on June 3rd, 1986. While it originally was unreleased in America and other countries, it did release only a few short years later. The Super Mario Bros. 2 we did get was Mario Madness, a character-swapped version of Doki Doki Planet because Miyamoto and others at Nintendo felt the original was too hard. It released a year after the original. Mario Madness released a year after The Lost Levels, on October 9th, 1988. However, the original Japanese Super Mario Bros. 2 was released in America several different times, An upgraded remake version was released in 1993 as Super Mario Bros. 2, The Lost Levels, in the Super Mario All-Stars collection for the Super Nintendo. A version closer to the original was released in 1999 on the Game Boy Color as a part of Super Mario Deluxe, which, fun fact, was featured at the 2017 Nintendo World Championship. The Lost Levels would again be re-released in 2004 on the Game Boy Advance in a Famicom Mini compilation cartridge. A completely unaltered version of the original would be released in 2007 on the Wii Virtual Console and in 2012 on the 3DS Virtual Console. It would also be released in 2013 on the Wii U in Japan and in 2014 on the Wii U in Europe and North America. In 2010, for the 25th anniversary of Mario, the upgraded remake found in the Super Mario All-Stars was re-released on the Nintendo Wii. The Lost Levels was also one of the games featured in the 2014 NES Remix on the Wii U and Ultimate NES Remix for 3DS. And finally, it will likely be released again when the Nintendo Switch Virtual Console eventually releases. So please, when you're talking about a cancelled or unreleased Mario game, do not mention Super Mario Bros. 2. It was never cancelled, and it was never unreleased. It did originally release only for Japan like minigames, but later came to North America and other countries only a few years later. Altogether, the game has released more than 10 times over the past 30 years and is playable on 8 different consoles. Instead, bring up games like Super Mario 64 2, which was cancelled, or the original Zelda 3, which was a separate game from A Link to the Past, which Miyamoto mentioned had 3 playable characters and was 100% complete and waiting to be shipped, but was sadly never actually released. If you're interested in finding out more about those games, check out some of our other top 5 cancelled and unreleased games videos. We have lists on Zelda, Mario, Pokemon, Sonic, and even PlayStation games. If you are not interested in other cancelled games, check out our lists on the top 5 rare and obscure Mario and Zelda games.
Also, let us know what games you would like to see us focus on in the future. Then subscribe so you don't miss out on when those videos go live. Finally, our last cancelled Mario game.
Yoshi Racing would have been the world's first 3D platformer, beginning development long before Super Mario 64 became the standard not just for every 3D game to release in the following years, but for every 3D platformer released over 20 years later. In fact, Nintendo named it as one of the biggest inspirations for Super Mario Odyssey on the Nintendo Switch, with them wanting to recapture what made 64 so great. Well, you may be surprised to know that it wasn't the first attempt at a 3D Mario game. Interviews are available to read and watch where Miyamoto talks about trying to create a 3D Mario long before the Nintendo 64 was in development. In some interviews, Miyamoto has mentioned taking inspiration from the 3D gameplay of Star Fox and creating a very pre-alpha build of what would later become Super Mario 64. During this time, Nintendo would also work on other various 3D Mario demos and concepts that would either be cancelled or be the foundation of what would become other games, which we may do a future episode on.
One of these early 3D Mario demos, actually the very first one, wasn't developed by Nintendo. Argonaut Games, the developers of the 3D Star Fox game that inspired Miyamoto, actually worked on their own 3D Mario platformer after a long and successful partnership with Nintendo that involved the creation of the Super FX chips, which were used in games like Star Fox, Doom, and Super Mario World 2. However, currently no gameplay or screenshots are available for Yoshi Racing, but a demo was created and the game was pitched to Nintendo. It was described as a hybrid mix of gameplay mechanics that you would expect from a 3D version of Super Mario World and Super Mario Kart. This pitch was thought to take place during what many believe to be around the same time that development began of Star Fox 2, which went on to also be cancelled by Nintendo, and wouldn't be officially released until 2017, where it was finally completed and launched on the SNES Mini. However, the demo received a very positive response from Nintendo, and even Miyamoto was fascinated by the project. Sadly, at the time, Nintendo had a very strict guideline when it came to their own characters, especially Mario and Zelda. So despite enjoying the demo, they decided not to follow through with the project. Argonaut Games would continue to work on the project, but as a new IP. Yoshi the Green Dinosaur was changed to Croc the Crocodile, and the similarities between the two are easily noticeable. Eventually, the project turned into Croc Legend of the Gobos. It was released in late 1997 on PlayStation, Sega, and PC. Basically everything except Nintendo. It makes me wonder if this was because of Nintendo rejecting the game, or if it was for technical reasons. Although the demo was pitched in the early 90s, it wasn't publicly revealed until an article from Eurogamer, which details Argonaut Games' involvement in the development of the original Star Fox. In the article, the game was only described as a 3D platformer and was left unnamed. Later on, an Argonaut employee would confirm the game was titled Yoshi Racing while in development and described it as a character racing game. At an even later date, the founder of Argonaut Games, Jez San, gave this statement: "The end came when we pitched to do a 3D platform game, the likes of which had never been done before. We mocked up a prototype using Yoshi. It was essentially the world's first 3D platform game, and was obviously a big risk. Nintendo never let an outside company use their characters before, and weren't about to either. This is the moment the deal fell apart. We later made the game into Croc Legend of the Gobos for the PlayStation, Saturn, and PC, which became our biggest ever game in terms of sales and also in royalties, since we own the IP." In a different statement, Jez would also mention that Miyamoto came to him and personally apologized for not greenlighting the Yoshi game. If the Yoshi game would have finished development, Argonaut Games could have potentially went on to become one of Nintendo's top tier developers and been looked at in the same regard as Rare, who worked on the Donkey Kong Country series, Retro Studios, famous for the Metroid Prime series, and Grezzo, who at this time has worked on 5 or 6 separate Zelda games. The videos on this channel are funded by supporters on Patreon like you. If you're a fan of this channel and would like to join on videos, receive shoutouts, watch videos early, have your questions answered, or have your topic discussed on our podcast, please consider supporting on Patreon for these and many other rewards for just $1. Shoutouts for this video includes Link Use the Triforce, Rusty Caulfield, Lovable Christie, Give Time 15, Shadow to Us, Robbie Morgan, and Lunarium. I want to thank all of you for everything you have done to help support this channel.